This week's Torah portion is Parshat Tetzaveh, but it's also the Torah portion in which we read Parshat Zachor. Zachor et asher asa lecha Amalek bederech betzetchem miMitzrayim. We need to not only remember what the Amalekites did in attacking us upon our exodus from Egypt, but also macho timche et zecher Amalek. We are expected to completely obliterate and annihilate the nation of Amalek. This is a very, very difficult mitzvah to understand, especially from a people who consider themselves Rahmanim, compassionate, merciful, and certainly emulating the midah, the attribute of mercy from Hashem. But what's interesting is, and I'm not necessarily going to answer that question because it's a question that's pondered and that is pondered by many, many commentaries for a very long time and still difficult to grasp and understand. But interestingly enough, when the Navi speaks to Shaul HaMelech, King Saul, who is given the directive to annihilate Agag, Melech Amalek, the king of Amalek, Agag, Shaul struggles with this particular directive, and it says, Vayarev Banachal. Vayarev Banachal means within the stream that was separating himself between his troops and the troops of Agag, the Amalekite king. It says Vayarev. Vayarev comes from the word harbe, many. In other words, it could be that he amassed the troops in order to prepare themselves for this particular battle. But Vayarev also comes from the word riv. There was a struggle. What struggle did Shaul have? Chazal, the rabbis, explained that he had an internal struggle. Internally, he was quandering to himself, how am I going to fulfill this directive? How can I kill women and children, and so on and so forth? Very, very difficult for Shaul to grasp, and ultimately, he did not fulfill the commandment, as it were, from the Navi, from the prophet, from the words of Hashem. But I think that there are two things that we learn from here. Number one, Shaul's grasping and grappling with this particular problem demonstrates that in the end of the day, the attribute, the quality of life is so sacred to us, is so important and so focal to our existence, that we really do have a difficult time dealing with death. Life is the most crucial and most important attribute and quality that we need to embrace. Number two, we need to understand that perhaps from this story it sheds light on Shaul's struggling internally. Mentally, he could not deal and grasp this commandment. He could not necessarily see himself to fulfilling it. And what we need to understand from this, even though we can't necessarily understand the commandment itself, we need to appreciate that people do have internal struggles. They are grappling with mental conundrums, with mental challenges internally, so much so that it can tear them apart and can obstruct them from being able to ultimately fulfill what they want to fulfill in their lives. And so these are, I think, two particular points that we can understand, even though it's difficult for us to grasp the commandment of annihilating a nation. There are two attributes or two important directives and focal central points that we can understand and can certainly incorporate from this story. Number one, the attribute and quality of life, how important it is and should be to all of us. And number two, appreciating that people are struggling internally. Vayarev, ariv, an internal struggle and strife that people have within their mental faculties. These are things that we need to appreciate, embrace, certainly as we approach Purim, in which we are demonstrating love and chesed, compassion to the people around us. Let us focus also not only physically, but also mentally on those who are struggling, reach out to them, and be sensitive and compassionate to the most important attribute and quality of life. This is the Jewish way, it is the Torah way, and it is the Gila Way. Shabbat Shalom and Purim Sameach.